webinar. Today we're pleased to welcome Drew Yannikis, who will be presenting about the disability application process. Drew has over 12 years of experience as a disability advocate, and he's helped many people with Huntington's disease apply for disability. Before I invite Drew to begin, I'd like to take a moment to review how you can ask a question and how you can access the webinar after broadcast. Questions will be answered after the presentation. However, you can send a question anytime during the presentation. To send a question, just go to the control panel that appears on the right side of your screen. You will see a panel for typing in a question. After typing in your question, just hit the send button. You can also view this webinar again 48 to 72 hours after broadcast on our national website. To access the presentation, just go to www.hdsa.org and scroll down the home page until you come to the link for the webinar. There will be an accompanying PowerPoint presentation that will allow you to print the slides and a PDF file of additional information. Older webinars are also archived in the Living with HD section. And now I'm pleased to welcome Drew.
Okay, I guess I'm on. Hi, my name is Drew Yannikis. I'm with Disability Claims Representatives, and I'm happy to be here to present some key thoughts and ideas on how to go through the process and what to expect from the process of going for your Social Security disability. One very important note that I want to bring up that has come up with a lot of people that I've talked to all over the country through HDSA is that they're a little bit intimidated by Social Security when they're told that they have to go and purchase or bring all of their medical records to the appointment for applying for disability. It is a policy of Social Security to ask for it, however it is not mandatory, and that there is no actual requirement that you go and purchase your medical records for your disability application. As you all know, sometimes if you do need to go to the hospital and get records, they are very expensive. Social Security disability determination will have a signed release from you and will be able to obtain all of your medical records from all of the providers that you would list on your application. When you're getting ready to apply for Social Security, there's a few ways you can do it. You can contact Social Security directly to the local office in your jurisdiction and set up an appointment. Or you can go online and do your application, or you can have a representative or an attorney assist you with your application. The things that you really need to have ready before your application would be the complete list and names and addresses and phone numbers of all of your employers, your doctors, your hospitals, your next of kin, etc. It's very important to have complete addresses and phone numbers because this is the only way Social Security would be able to contact anybody in lieu of, or in conjunction with your application. Your dates of employment and job descriptions is also very important because it could assist Social Security in making a favorable decision based on the type of work you've done in the past and for how long you've done it. And your dates of medical service are also really important. You don't necessarily need to have the exact day and time that you might have had a test or a surgery or a hospitalization, but a good general idea of when your medical services took place is very important. That will assist disability determination in obtaining all of your medical records from all of the facilities. Also, a complete list of your medications is very important. They don't necessarily at this point need to know your dosage or who prescribed them, but it is very important to have all of them listed and try to have a good idea of what side effects you might be experiencing. Even the most minimal side effect could be important in helping make the determination to take your application from an application to an approval and not a denial. One very important note to keep in mind is that if you do decide to apply online, the application process is in two parts. Your first part is the application for Social Security disability, and it has about 15 or 20 screens that you would go through, and then you would hit the send button and the application would be registered in Social Security system. You then need to go in and complete the adult disability report, which is the next phase of the online application. In filling out that report, you'll be talking about your medical history, your doctor's appointments, etc., that we were just going over on the last screen. So the more information you have available, the easier it will be to complete the application process. The one thing that is important to note is that if you are income eligible for SSI, which is supplemental security income, the application is not yet available online, and you would still need to be in touch with Social Security to do that application, either over the phone or in person at the local Social Security office. Now, your representative and or your attorney would be able to do the SSI application with you and submit it to Social Security. But if you're doing this on your own, you would have to go and speak with the claims rep at Social Security for SSI. Once again, SSI is for people who, during the application process, have no income or very, very low income and are limited in their assets. One thing to consider when you're applying for disability, that if you are without income or assets, there is a 5-month waiting period for Social Security disability benefits to begin. During that 5-month period, you would be eligible for an SSI payment if your claim is approved, and you would also at that point be eligible for full Medicaid through your state departments of social services or their welfare office where they can do a Medicaid application. When you're doing the application, you will receive a sign-up number or a re-entry number, a re-entry number as you're doing the application. You can stop the application process and then re-enter and complete it at another time if you're not able to complete it totally on your own at that moment. Now, once you've submitted your disability application and you've submitted the adult disability report, you're not quite done. You will receive in the mail, probably within 5, 10, or 15 days from Social Security, a lot of paperwork that you're going to need to sign and return to them before your case will be submitted to disability determination. In those forms will be the medical release forms that will be sent to your doctors and your hospitals, and they'll also be asking for a signature for your application that you filed online. Make sure that if you do the application online that you anticipate these papers coming to you, and if by chance they never arrive within, say 10 or 15 days, contact your local office to make sure that they actually have received your application. I've met and dealt with a lot of people who have started the process and unfortunately didn't hit the send button or something went wrong electronically, and Social Security never received it. So it's very important to make sure that you do your follow-up, and if you receive any documentation from Social Security in the mail, that you open it immediately and sign it and return it per their request. If you are not sure of what to do with the information that they're sending you, pick up the phone and contact your local Social Security office, not the 800 number, but your local office. Their phone number will be on those forms, and they can assist you in finalizing all the paperwork that you need to do. When you're applying for your disability, it's important that you explain how your condition affects your life and limits your ability to function. The only way a Social Security disability determiner is going to be able to understand exactly what you personally are going through at this time is if you write it down. You want to list, and you want to be very cautious to list all of your symptoms and all of your conditions, and as much detail as you possibly could include will really help the examiner and the Social Security representative help process your case quickly. The limits of your ability to function, lack of limits of ability to function while you are applying for disability are very important to list. You want to even discuss that you're having a headache or a backache or high blood pressure or whatever. You want to list all of your illnesses, and you want to list all of the problems that you're having. The other point that has come up many times is that when you are talking with a Social Security representative, you sometimes might get the impression that your case is being approved or being looked at favorably right off the top. Social Security Administration does not make the disability determination. That's made by an independent state organization that will look at your medical records and look at your work history independently of Social Security, and then make the determination and return your case back to Social Security. I think I already went over this. The filing of the 827, which is the authorization to release medical information, is one of the most important documents to send into Social Security after you've made your application. Without that signed document, they cannot process your case, and it will not be sent to disability determination. The medical release forms are very, very important, and if you do not receive one in the mail from Social Security or don't print one out and return it to Social Security, give a call to your claims rep at Social Security in order to obtain one. When you're filling out the application, take your time in explaining your condition, and make sure you read and review all the documents that you are submitting either electronically or if you're in person with Social Security or representative. The process, once you have completed all of the necessary paperwork, will take between 5 and 6 months before you will hear back from Social Security with a determination. During that 5 or 6 month period, they'll be obtaining all of your medical records, and during that period they might also contact you for a consultative exam with one of their doctors. If you are asked to go to a consultative exam, please make sure you arrive there on time, and if for some reason you're not able to go to the appointment, be in touch with the disability determiner immediately. The consultative exams are paid for completely by Social Security, and they're there to help make your case a little bit stronger so that they might possibly be able to approve it. During that 5 or 6 month waiting period, you'll also receive questionnaires. The questionnaires are your only ability to be in touch with the disability determiner and explain everything that is going on in your life. These questionnaires are quite lengthy. They sometimes are a little bit overwhelming, especially if you're not feeling well. But it's very important that you take your time and you go through each question and answer it very completely and very thoroughly. I have some tips on filling out the questionnaires, and one tip is, which is a very important one, is to have either a caregiver, a representative, or a lawyer, or someone who knows you very well review your answers with you. You don't necessarily need to have somebody coach you or tell you how to fill it out, But what you want to do is have somebody to make sure that you're not missing something that might be significant that you might have forgotten while you were filling out the questionnaires. Think very carefully about how you will answer each question and consider all your limitations, both mental and physical, and be as consistent with your answers as possible. Now, I have a copy of the adult function report that, unfortunately, it's a large form on the screen. Let me see if I can shrink this down a little. Okay. This is the form that you'll be receiving in the mail. It's an 8-page form that is asking for demographics of where you live and how you live and information about your illness. In filling this out, you want to take a lot of time and go into a lot of detail. This is your chance to tell the examiner in your own words how your condition is affecting your life, your ability to function, and your ability to work. When you're filling this out, if you need additional space, take a piece of paper and write out a good description of how your illness or your injury or your condition limits your ability to work. It's very important to also remember that both fatigue, instability, memory loss, chorea movement, all of these things limit your ability to work, and you should try to explain it in detail if you can, with as much detail as you can. They're also asking for you to describe what you do from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed. This is a very important thing and should not be minimalized. I've seen so many people do their functional reports and they put, you know, I get up, get dressed, eat, watch TV, and go back to sleep. Go into detail. You don't need to do it by the hour, but by possibly morning, noon, and night. Explain how many hours you're able to stay awake, how many times you need to take a nap, what your limitations are, and basically, you know, what you do each day basically what you do each day. The questions here, as you can see, are pretty self-explanatory. They're asking if you're taking care of anyone, taking care of pets, taking care of anyone else, and also ask for what you did before you became ill that you can't do now. That is a really important thing to show all of the activities that you used to do and then why you're not able to do them now. And it's really important to go into detail with this particular question, and even though there's only one small line, you might want to add an extra piece of paper, because showing that you're not capable of doing things that you've always enjoyed doing can also show that the limitations that you now have are pretty significant. Personal care is a very interesting question because most people just check no and go on to page 3. They're asking in this question to explain how your illness or your injury affects your ability to dress or bathe or care for your hair, shave, feed, use the toilet, or do other activities. The question, I think, needs to be answered very, very honestly and very carefully, because there's a lot of components that go into both dressing and bathing and caring for hair. For instance, if you're having motor troubles and you are not able to control your hands due to chorea movement, caring for your hair could be difficult. Putting none because you have your hair cut real short does not necessarily indicate that you're not having a problem. What you might want to put in that situation is that you've had your hair cut really short because you are not able to maintain it anymore. If you're having trouble bending or lifting or squatting or stooping or reaching, any of these motor type problems, that'll also affect your ability to dress. I've seen a lot of function reports where people put that they have no problems. And then further in the function report, which we'll see shortly, is another section about your limitations and your abilities to do different things. If you can't bend, putting on your socks could be a real difficult problem. You might want to consider sitting down possibly with your caregiver or a family member or a friend and just say, you know, let's go over this. You know, you see me every day. Am I having any trouble with this? You know, putting buttons together or getting up and sitting down on the toilet is also a very difficult thing. Climbing in and out of the bathtub is a function that you might not really think about, but if it's not safe for you, or if you are shaky in your feet, or you're having excessive movements that could be dangerous, you want to list that right there. Getting special reminders, that's a real hard question to answer because everybody wants to try to maintain as much independence as they can. It's really important to be very honest with this because it could help the examiner who is seeing some cognitive decline in your medical records realize that there might be just a little bit more cognitive decline or more problems in remembering. And reminders are a important factor when you're dealing with cognitive problems. Preparing your meals is also another area where people have not specified exactly what they do to prepare a meal. It's important to say that you're only able to do a microwave meal or that you are able to do a 4-course meal. Preparing a meal can be misconstrued by somebody who doesn't know you as being a function that you're capable of doing, even though you might not be completely. If you're only able to make a sandwich, for instance, put down why. Or if you're only able to eat a sandwich that somebody else has prepared for you, and then also put down why. How long it takes is also a very, very important part, especially when you're being evaluated for HD, for Social Security benefits. The amount of time it takes you to do certain things, like preparing a meal or going to the supermarket or even getting dressed or choosing your clothes or anything like this, is very important. Social Security evaluates your ability, especially in the workplace, to be able to function for a 6 to 8 hour day, 5 days a week. If, for instance, it takes 3 or 4 hours just to pick out your clothes and get dressed and prepare a meal, that's going to limit your ability to be in a work environment working 6 or 8 hours a day. Showing the time limitations and time constraints you have on each of your tasks is a very good tool to provide to the examiner so that they would be able to get an idea of how hard things are. For instance, if it takes you 55 minutes to an hour to get dressed and it takes another half hour to have breakfast, they're going to see that things have gotten quite slow. Therefore, if you were in a work environment, your ability to function at a rapid pace to be able to do your job would be significantly limited. Household chores and yard work is also something that's important to show because it'll show your dexterity and what you are able to do and what you're not able to do. If you are able right now to be doing chores and working indoors and outdoors, it's very important to not make general statements like, I cut the lawn. You might want to go into a little bit more detail that, you have a small yard and it takes 5 minutes to cut with a lawnmower versus, a 4-acre property where you'd be out there for 4 or 5 hours. Quantifying your answers is very important so that they get a good idea of exactly what you're doing and how you're doing it. And needing encouragement, this is a very important question. If it takes a lot to motivate you, and if you're having trouble just even wanting to get up and do something because you know it's going to be hard or it's going to take more time than you feel you can spend to do it, it's important to list that because it's just adding more information to the examiner as to how things really are in terms of identifying what you are able to do and what you're not able to do. Not doing housework or yard work, that's a very good one to also go into a good amount of detail. And if you are not able to do it, explain why, and explain in as much detail as you can that your back hurts, your arms hurt, you're limited in the ability to lift or carry, etc. Going outside, these are all pretty self-explanatory. And driving. Driving is a very interesting concept with people that have neurological disorders, because we all want to drive and we all like to drive, but we also know what our limitations are when we're driving. If you are still driving, which is great, this question is not going to force you to stop driving. You would never be required to surrender your license based on what you're saying. Social Security does not have that type of power. But if you are driving, explain how much and where you go, and if you have any personal limitations that you have inflicted on yourself for not driving, distance, possibly getting on highways, etc. If you're not driving, also explain why, and even if it's a voluntary situation that you're not driving, write that down. I choose not to drive because, I'm afraid behind the wheel, I get confused, whatever. Shopping, that's pretty self-explanatory. Same thing with money, if you're able to handle money or not. If you are still able to handle money, but you're overly cautious, write that down, that you have somebody check your checkbook, or you are very overly cautious when you're dealing with money. That's a good indication on how much you realize your condition is changing and how much extra help you might be needing. The hobbies and interest portion is very important, and it goes back to the original part of the questionnaire, where you really want to let them know who and what you were and why things have changed and why you're not able to do them anymore. It just adds a little bit more information to the examiner to be able to determine the extent of your illness. Social activities, that's pretty well self-explanatory also. There again, you want to go into as much detail as you possibly can, and feel free to use additional pages. This is probably one of the most important parts of the questionnaire, which goes into your abilities. And if you remember at the beginning when we were talking about your ability to bathe and care for your hair and shave and do things like that, you might want to, after doing this question, go back to question number 9A and make sure that your answers are consistent. If you are having trouble with lifting or squatting or bending, as we talked about earlier, that could affect your ability to dress and bathe and do all these other things. Using your hands, getting along with others, all very important things to discuss, especially with a diagnosis of Huntington's disease, because there are two phases in the determination. One is physical and one is cognitive. And if you're having trouble getting along with people, that could be a cognitive decline. If you're having trouble completing tasks and concentrating, there again, that could help meet that listing. But when you put both of them together and you're having trouble lifting and squatting and using your hands, and you're having trouble completing tasks, the examiners are able to combine the two listings and possibly offer you your disability, not based on one or the other, but by a combination of both. The other question here is, are you right-handed or left-handed? I always tell people to make sure, to write down that if you are right-handed and you have right-handed chorea, that affects your ability to write and to use your dominant hand, and vice versa with the left. Taking time to rest while you're walking is also a very, very important thing to write about. Trying to quantify how many steps you can take or how far you can walk, and then how long you have to sit down sometimes is a little bit difficult. Try to do it in terms of feet or blocks. If you say I can walk out to the mailbox and come back and then I have to rest, that does not necessarily give the examiner an idea quantitatively of how far you can walk. Some people's mailboxes are at their front door and some are all the way down the driveway. So it's important to pay very close attention to the question and remember that the person that you're going to be, who's going to be reading this form, is not going to be able to see you or see where you live or exactly what you're doing. Spoken instruction is very important when you're having cognitive declines. And that's probably one of the hardest questions that it is to answer on your own. But if you do have trouble understanding and following instruction, it's quite important to possibly even get a caregiver or someone to help you write out your thoughts to really show how following instructions can be a problem. That is a real vocational issue when it comes to Social Security's determination if you can continue to do the type of work you've been doing. Getting along with authority figures, have you been fired? All these are just additional questions that help piece together the whole puzzle of who you are and how your condition is affecting your life. Handling stress is probably one of the best questions that people just write down. I have no problem handling stress. You want to really think hard about the question and write out what it's like when you are possibly in a social environment and possibly get confused, or the stress of being out in public or in a group environment if you're having a lot of pain or chorea movement or whatnot. Handling the daily stressors of life also is weighed into the determination when it comes down to determining whether or not you are permanently disabled from working. Changes in routine, behaviors, and fears. Fear is something that we all have when we have a chronic illness, and putting down your thoughts and your fears and explaining how you feel and how it's affecting you really puts the personal touch on your claim to the examiner. Your different things that you might be using, it's important to only list the ones that are prescribed by a doctor. If they were not prescribed by a doctor, you can put a note at the end. There's a comment section that you are using a cane, but your doctor hasn't prescribed it, and why. That you have multiple falls, or you can't walk up and down stairs. But if you are using a assisted device that is not prescribed, it would probably be a good idea to discuss that with your primary care physician to see if they might actually want to prescribe it for you. The list of medications, and we discussed this part in the application process, but the side effects are extremely important to list, and you want to list them in detail. Take your time, but if you are having problems with taking medications, you do want to list all of the side effects that you are having. And we'll go very quickly because we're running out of time. There are two other questionnaires that also come up, which are pretty well self-explanatory. One is the fatigue questionnaire. This is very important because fatigue is a major, major debilitating part of your ability to function in the workplace. And it is very hard to quantify fatigue. So I know your doctors probably write down that you're tired, that you are fatigued, that you do have a fatigue syndrome or whatnot. Go into as much detail as you can with these questions, because fatigue is a major player in determining whether or not you are disabled or if you're not disabled. And the final, whoops, I didn't put that final one in there. The final one is the pain questionnaire. And the pain questionnaire also is a very important thing to spend a lot of time and a lot of patience in filling out. Where you have pain, what kind of pain, and how often you have pain also limits your ability to be able to function in the workplace, and will limit your functional capacity to be able to do most jobs. Very important to go into detail. The last questionnaire, which I don't have on the system, is a third-party questionnaire that is also very important to have a caregiver or a loved one that knows your condition very well to help fill out and submit as a third party or an interested party that can also explain how things are and whether or not your disabilities are seen by others. And also, the third party also gives a different perspective from somebody who is watching you and helping you and dealing with you versus you who are trying to explain it on your own about yourself, which sometimes is very hard. Now, if I can ask Jane if there's any questions, we could start answering them, or I could go back over some other aspects from the presentation.
Thank you, Drew. So again, you can send a question, and to send it, just go to the control panel that appears on the right side of your screen and type in your question and press the send button.
Okay, we do have a question. Can a legal guardian with power of attorney fill out the application? Yes. Social Security does not acknowledge powers of attorney per se. However, anyone, a representative, a family member, an attorney, a caretaker, a social worker, anyone can fill out the application and assist them in going through the process either online, or you could go into the Social Security office and do the application with a claims representative there. If in this particular case, the individual saying that her loved one would not understand the questions nor the importance of specific details and would not be able to fill out the application, much less with the importance of the details. This happens a lot. Social Security is not looking for perfection from anybody, I guess is a good way to say it. I personally fill out the applications with my claimants exclusively. I work with them, I ask the questions, we interpret the questions, and then we actually do the application for the claimant. If you are working with your daughter, it's probably very, very important for you to assist with the application. And under the comments, both at the beginning and at the end of the application, put down your thoughts that you completed this application for your loved one because they are cognitively unable, they don't have the vocabulary, they don't have the speech, whatever the reason is. But absolutely, you are more than able to do the application for them. If you are denied for SSI or SSDI, the next step would be to go for reconsideration. And you have about 60 days to do a reconsideration. The reconsiderations right now are taking anywhere between 6 to 9 months. And if you are denied on reconsideration, you would then be able to apply for an appeal to the administrative law judge, which is unfortunately about 1.5 years after the second declination that you get to the judge. If you're declined by the judge, then you can go to the appeals council, which unfortunately takes a few more years. However, during this process of reconsideration, if your condition changes or if anything dramatic happens that would lead you to believe that you now do meet or equal a listing for disability, you can attempt to have your case expedited so that you are not waiting, for the duration of the time before you'd be seen or heard. With reconsiderations, it's important that there be some type of a change in your condition from the initial application. And it's very important to keep your application going so that you can develop your onset date as far as you can so that you can get your back payment and get closer to Medicare. One thing that I do stress is for people not to apply for Social Security benefits too early. If you're diagnosed with HD, the diagnosis in and of itself will not be a listing. The ramifications of the disease, both cognitively and physically, will make or break your case. If you are symptomatic, then definitely apply. If you are not yet symptomatic and you are still capable of doing some type of work, it would be better for you to wait so that you don't get caught up in the denial and the appeal and the denial process. The next question is, do you recommend applying for both SSD and SSI? Yes. Let me qualify. If you have paid in enough quarters, you apply for SSD or SSDI, Social Security Disability Income. And if you are a newly diagnosed person who have just stopped working, you would want to apply for SSI if you're income eligible so that you would have some type of income during that 5-month waiting period. To go over the 5-month waiting period a little bit more in detail, if you stop working, for instance, on December 31st, and on January 1st, you apply for disability, and they determine that on January 1st, you are disabled, most likely what will happen is your January, February, March, April, and May calendar months will be exempt from payment under federal law, waiting for your eligibility date of the 6 months for payment. You're not paid by Social Security for that 6 months until the 7th, because Social Security pays 1 month in arrears. If you are of low income, no income, and you are asset eligible, during that 5-month period that you would have no income, you would be eligible for SSI. SSI is supplemental security income, and it is based on the same exact determination that you would be getting from disability determination services for SSDI. The reason that SSI is in place for someone who is eligible for Social Security disability is to get you through that 5-month waiting period. In the event that you have not paid in enough quarters for SSDI and you have not worked enough in the past, or you've worked many, many years ago and have been out of the workforce for a while, if you're not eligible for SSDI and your household is income eligible and asset eligible, applying for SSI would give you an income payment until you were able to retire at 65. With SSI, you get Medicaid. With SSDI, 2 years after you are put into payment, you would receive Medicare. The difference between Medicare and Medicaid is the difference between 100% medical coverage, which is Medicaid, and 80%, which is Medicare. If you are deemed disabled and you are receiving SSDI during that 2-year period before your Medicare starts and you are uninsured, it is recommended that you contact your local Department of Social Services and apply for Medicaid. Even though you will be over income for full Medicaid, you may be eligible for what is called a Medicaid Spindown. Right now, most states are still doing spendowns. A few have stopped. But what a spend-down basically means is any of your medical bills that have either been written off by the state through a state hospital, or any of your medical bills that go unpaid can be applied against your income with a formula. And if you have enough bills to bring your income down to the poverty level for Medicaid, you would be eligible for Medicaid for a 6-month period of time. Without the disability determination, you would not be eligible for Medicaid. If by chance you are of low income or no income or have very high medical bills and you are not eligible for SSDI because you have not paid into the system, and you are not asset eligible for SSI, possibly from a spouse's income or 401k in the bank or whatnot, you may be eligible for Medicaid by going to your state agency through the Department of Social Services and apply for Medicaid disability determination outside of Social Security, since you are not eligible for Social Security benefits. This is a very, very important tool, especially if long-term care becomes an issue. And if you're not eligible for SSI or SSDI, you still can get a disability determination based on your condition. Now, if I'm looking at this right, I think that's all of the questions that I'm seeing. Jane, are there any more questions on the?
There are no more questions. So last call for questions again. Drew has about 5 more minutes. So if you have any last-minute questions, just type them into the control panel and press the send button.
Okay, one other thing going back to the initial process. The process is a bit arduous, and at times it's a bit confusing. if you are having trouble reaching your local Social Security office, or if you do not have someone that can help you through this process, it is very important to try to find someone that can help you do this. There are social workers in the hospital that can assist with disability applications. There's representatives like myself that can assist. There are attorneys that can assist, and there's also other organizations that are out there that can help you go through the paperwork and go through the, I guess the better word is the bureaucracy to get all of this done. It is a lengthy process. It's a very frustrating process. And the more help that you can get and the more insight you can get into developing your case individually is very, very important. A lot of the people that I help, I am here to give advice, and advice is free, and I'd be more than happy to talk to anybody that has questions concerning the process. The presentation to Social Security is very important in terms of making sure that you have enough documentation to justify and warrant the disability claim. If your condition is not very bad at this point, and if you are still functioning relatively normally, I do advise to hold off until you've got some good medical documentation to prove your case. A doctor's opinion stating, you know, Mrs. So-and-so is disabled in my opinion, unfortunately will not hold a lot of weight. It's the actual medical evidence documenting your condition. If you are newly diagnosed with HD, it is very important to be seeing your doctor regularly and making sure that your doctor is documenting all of your conditions and all of the problems that you're having. Okay, I think I might have just gotten another question, but it looks like I might be missing part of it. It says, I understand they're working on making HD available for disability immediately, like Lou Gehrig's disease, for Medicare. Yes, they are attempting. I would be in contact with HDSA. I'm sure they could give you a lot more insight on how far things are going along. Medicare is a very important tool when it comes to long-term diseases like HD and ALS. Unfortunately, right now, HD is not on the list for an immediate decision as it is for ALS, but every day we're getting closer, and I'm sure if you've been around HD for a while, it's much easier to get disability and or Medicare now than it was possibly even 5 or 6 years ago. So I know there's a lot of people in Washington working very hard to try to add a lot of the neurological diseases to the list, and hopefully HD will be one of them in the near future. Jane, I think we're at 1 o'clock. Do we still have more time?
We are at 1 o'clock, Drew, and that concludes the webinar. Thank you so much, Drew, for presenting. And if anyone has any questions, Drew's email is on there. Again, the webinar will be up on the Living with HD section of our website within 48 to 72 hours. Thanks, everyone.